Carolyn, always a new location for you. Why is Arte Povera movement important in the art history? Because you speak about art history, right?
That's a very good question. Well, I think it's important because it's a state of mind and it's a point of view on what is an artwork that brings us to appreciate embodied life, that nothing is inert and dead. Not even this marble behind me or this ink, typographic ink, or this mud. Everything is alive, and in Arte Povera's perspective. And it is actually, if you think about entanglement and quantum mechanics, and if you think about chemistry and physics and alchemy, you know, Germano Celant, who coined the term, was the student of Eugenio Battisti, who is an expert on Renaissance alchemy. So Zorio, with his transformations, you know, he creates, il y a un foudre, he creates a lampo, how do you say a foudre? Lightning, there's
Yes.
a lightning bolt in the basement of the Bourse,
Okay.
the arcovoltaico. So that's very visible, but if you look at other things, it's on a very invisible level.
A lot are
Art-
on an
Arte Povera-
invisible level, like
Well, micro and
Asian
macro.
spirit in a way.
Yes, well, micro and macro. I mean, we're right now in an installation of Zorio, his first direzione, which belongs to Monsieur Pinault, who has a great collection of Arte Povera. The first one of the boussole, you know, the compass inside the small object, directs us according to the magnetic fields of the universe. So we are oriented by, and we orient the universe. Such simple work just behind me makes us become part of it. So Arte Povera is a way of thinking that an artwork is in a constant metamorphosis, and that it is a form of reality that is perceivable because of energy transformations. And this can be made perceivable with the humblest of techniques and the simplest of materials.
So is it the next step after Marcel Duchamp? Like spirituality in art?
That's a very good question. Marcel Duchamp opened up conceptual art and opened up the idea that something from the real can be also an artwork, the ready-made. But they are not interested in it's actually the opposite of Duchamp. Duchamp takes something from the real, takes it out of the real, and stops it in a metaphysical suspension. It's like going against Ford and the industrial production line.
Not against.
Against in the sense of taking it out of
Yes.
the assembly line and suspending it forever in a non-use. Arte Povera, in a way, does the opposite, because they basically invent installation art. They take things from the world that become part of a scene, of a set, like a stage in theater, and the visitors walk around through these materials and things, and so the place becomes real. So it's taking that suspension of the artwork out, making the museum or the gallery able to welcome le réel. That's why there are so many artists, and le réel c'est du vivant. So that's why there are so many artists that were influenced by Arte Povera.
Like who?
Oh, well, like Pierre Huyghe. I mean, why did I do so much with him? Why did I write a book about him and invite him to Castello di Rivoli for his first major solo show? And then in the Documenta, you know, there's a hidden secret line that goes from the pink-eyed dog of Calzolari in Malina in the Casa Ideale and the pink paw of Pierre's Umana in his Untilled that we did in Castello, but also in Documenta.
Even Catalan stole some ideas.
It's not about stealing. It's not about stealing. Art is not about stealing. Art is a constant dialogue between artists.
In time.
Yeah, in time. I wouldn't say that Catalan has the point of view of Arte Povera, but
No,
Pierre
but-
Huyghe certainly does.
No, but we think about
Yes,
the marble
of
statue,
course, of course.
the murder people from the mafia,
Yeah,
and it makes think about that.
yes, it does. That's Lo Spirato of Luciano Fabbro. And so he does this between 1968 and 1972. So it took him many years to do this. It's of course a kind of a critique of conceptual art, because he's not for dematerialization. There's a hell of a lot of material and weight, and it's not about a poor material. He's using marble.
Exactly. This is not Arte Povera
Yes,
as
it
we
is,
imagine
totally.
Arte Povera. Why?
Because it's about the craft, the humble, simple, ancient craft of making un pli, faire un pli,
fold.
with stone. So he's celebrating
The hand.
the hand and the craft, the encounter between the human and the material in a very humble craft. He takes away the head, so it's not intellectual, and it's not a Laocoonte, it's not a Christ, it's a nobody figure, it's in anybody. So what's important is only that labor of being able to make marble into a cloth, just as the earlier Fabbro, same artist.
This is very Povera.
But they're both Povera. It's both Luciano Fabbro. This is 1967. This is 1968. Here he's celebrating the hand and craft of stone carving, with no subject. No hero, no nothing. And here he's celebrating the work of people who clean floors.
So,
And
but
look, he cleans floors. This is just a clean floor. It's just a floor that's been polished.
to respect the work of the cleaning lady.
He was inspired by the fact that he saw in churches and things, people would clean the floor and then cover it with newspaper, almost to protect the work that one has done, the labor,
Yeah.
for a little bit of time. It's like pushing the cleanliness into a little bit in the future. So he loved that idea, and this work is a homage to cleaning floors.
And so, what about the acception, the meaning of Povera? It's not the one we imagine, right?
No, well, the cliche is always it's humble, poor materials.
Yeah.
But it's not.
For
It's-
Merce, it's a bit like that, no?
Well, it's a bit like that for Fabbro. We just saw.
Sometimes.
Yeah, but that's not. There's an equivalence between marble, which is humble material. If you think about it, it's just bones of shells. For long, deep history, the bones of carbon-based organisms become marble. So it's a question of duration. The newspaper is very short temporality, marble long temporality. But all of this is part of nature. It's all part of the world. So a tree, a branch, it's all part of nature. So what is this? What is your question?
Povera.
Oh, povera, altissima povertà. So we have to save the word poor, povero, from the negative associations that have been given to it as a synonym of indigent. How do you say? Indigente.
Si.
To not have enough money to live. And
So it's very Christian.
Saint Francis had the same frame of mind as Arte Povera. Saint Francis was born rich, as you know. He was the wealthiest family in Assisi. He was
I don't know. It's
well,
like
anyway,
Saint Francis.
they were merchants and very wealthy. And then he had this enlightenment vision, and he became comme un ascete. So he called it altissima povertà. Altissima povertà. It's not the word poor meaning unable to survive and live, to not have food, to not have money. Of course, that is to be eradicated from the planet if humanly possible. It's horrible that there's that kind of poverty. They are not celebrating that. They are celebrating the simplicity, the humbleness, the sobriété, the asceticism
And so,
of great visionary people. It's a little bit like even the thinking of Stoicism. if you think of Marcus Aurelius, and many, many Mediterranean philosophies.
And so, did you learn something in this new show? Or is there something to learn from people who are already familiar with Arte Povera?
Yes. I learned a lot in this new show.
Yes.
And made many, many small discoveries that are of great art historical relevance, but maybe only specialists will notice the part that I learned. For example, I found in an archive of papers of the widow of Yannis Kounelis, Effie, from around 1966-67, a paper with the first sketch idea for the horses performance. So it's exhibited and published for the first time. So of course, and it was very illuminating to understand how he had had the first idea. So I learned a lot of things like that in my research. What people can discover here of Arte Povera itself that is very special is, on the one hand, they can see in the flesh, in the embodiedness of it, great chef-d'oeuvre like the first Venere degli Stracci, Venus of the Rags of Pistoletto. But they can also see the first works of these great artists. For example, in the Rotonda, that copper, that white thing is actually givré. It's actually
Frozen.
Yes, frozen. It's actually Pier Paolo Calzolari's first freezing sculpture ever made.
Ah, wow. What year is it?
1967.
It's interesting to think that Olafur Eliasson did
course.
something like that.
Of course, no. Olafur is, you asked me about names. I mentioned Pierre because we're in Paris. But we have to say that there are many, many artists around the world and they recognize it. I mean, in the other thing that this exhibition has is a deep time, a connection. So there's before Arte Povera and there's after Arte Povera. I wanted to show the continuity. So we have an Etruscan vase, a vaso cano.
I saw it.
It's beautiful.
Wow,
From the Louvre.
amazing.
And
with the two arms,
the
like
hands
shot.
and the head and the vase. And it's of course a funerary urn, but it's as if the body, the circulation of energy, as I said, Arte Povera is about reality and the circulation of energy in the world, metamorphosis. So it's one of Calzolari's favorite, objects, that kind
Really?
of vase.
Did
Only
he speak
of course.
about it?
Of course,
Thi-
of course.
This special object?
Well, not that particular vaso cano.
But this kind.
Yes, but this kind of vase that
Etu-
only the
Etruscan.
Etruscan make.
Yeah.
We discuss a lot about it. The same way that Kounelis and I used to talk about Malevich. For Gianni and me, Malevich is like Arte Povera. It's a zeroing down in the moment of photography and spectacle at the beginning of the 20th century. It's like a reduction to an altissima povertà. It's like a Byzantine icon, Le Quadrato Nero. And Kounelis' first charcoal piece ever made is right next to it, and it's down on the ground. So you can understand that Kounelis' charcoal mound is actually a homage to Malevich Black Square. But of course I complicate things, so I didn't want the black square, and we got this beautiful loan from Gomorzinska, which is the dissolution of a plane. So we're in 1917, so it's like as if a square of Malevich is flowing out of the painting, and it's just before it lands into being a Kounelis. But, so we have the before Arte Povera that people can see. For example, in the Boetti gallery, you'll be able to see a beautiful painting of fish by Paul Klee, who was Boetti's favorite artist. You know, Boetti. And when you see Paul Klee as Boetti's favorite artist, you understand Boetti so much more. You know, the musical score of the little
Yes.
biro or the stitches of the embroidery. You can really understand, and you also understand Klee more.
And
actually.
also Klee was so modest, for example, in his scales.
The scale, but he also did something really important, because you mentioned Duchamp before. So Duchamp takes the industrially, let's say, the serial object out of the catena di montaggio, the assembly line. Klee does something else very interesting. He invents the monoprint. So he takes something which should be reproduced, a print,
And make
etching,
it once.
makes it one.
But
the
I thought it
monoprint.
was Degas,
Well,
monotype.
but that's true. You're right, and maybe there's 100 other people before. But I mean, whenever you state something like that,
Yeah.
the first is always somebody. But the different context, the thing of clay, we're in the middle of the assembly line, the factories, the industrialisation.
And he
the
decided to make
alienation.
one.
Well, he decides to make a technique with the way that you do the monoprint with the rubber and so on, that you can only make one. You can only make one. So it's not that it's a decision, to make one, because it's more like it's a technique, so you can only make one. So this kind of resistance to the alienation of the repetition of the objects of the assembly line of modernity is a little bit enhanced by Boetti's incredible celebration of this humanity stitching things together.
Craftsmanship.
Craft, but also the small differences, the minute differences between one gesture and
The
another.
whispers.
Yeah. So there's the before and there's the after, and then there's the in between, and then there's the rotonda. That's the heart of the exhibition.
The rotonda is beautiful. It works. It's the first time there's an assemblage like that.
Yes,
And it works.
I think so. I think it's the first time they have more than one artist in the rotonda. But I wanted to express the collectivity, the sense of collective identity that was really important to them in these aggregations like Amalfi and Deposito. It was about being together also.
Merci, madame.